I am Lauren, 29 years old, and until last month, I thought I had a pretty sweet deal. As a marketing specialist, I was renting my parents' apartment at 30% below market rate. After 2 years of hard work and careful saving, I was finally enjoying my independence. Then came that Sunday morning. The loud knocking at 8 a.m. jolted me awake. I opened the door to find my unemployed sister Vanessa standing there with her suitcases. Surprise, she grinned. I will live here now. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss how this crazy story ends. Let me back up a bit and explain how I ended up renting an apartment from my parents in the first place. After graduating from college with a marketing degree, I was drowning in student loans. We are talking about $60,000 of debt hanging over my head like a dark cloud. My starting salary at the digital marketing agency where I worked was decent but not great, especially for someone living in the city. Entry-level positions in marketing do not exactly make you rich overnight. When my parents mentioned they had an investment property they were planning to rent out, I saw an opportunity. The apartment was in a decent neighborhood close enough to my office that I could take public transportation, and most importantly, they offered to rent it to me for 30% below the market rate. For someone trying to chip away at mountains of student debt while also building some savings, this seemed like a godsend. We drew up an actual lease agreement. 1-year term rent due on the 1st of every month, and I would be responsible for all utilities. I made it clear that I wanted this to be a proper landlord-tenant arrangement, not some special family deal where they could drop by unannounced or have a say in how I lived. They agreed, or at least, they said they did at the time. To understand this story fully, you need to know a bit about my family dynamics. My mother, Martha, is what you might politely call controlling. She has very specific ideas about how things should be done, and God help anyone who disagrees. My father, Robert, is the classic enabler. He never stands up to her, just nods along with whatever she says. Their marriage seems to work for them, but growing up under that roof was challenging to say the least. Then there is my younger sister, Vanessa, the golden child. While I was expected to get perfect grades, work part-time jobs throughout high school and college, and become financially independent immediately after graduation, Vanessa was coddled. She dropped out of 3 different colleges, has never held a job for more than 6 months, and somehow still gets monthly assistance from our parents well into her mid-20s. Vanessa has a talent for getting herself into financial trouble and then crying to our parents to bail her out. Maxed out credit cards, mom and dad will pay them off. Got fired for showing up late every day. Not her fault, her boss was out to get her. Evicted for not paying rent, the landlord was totally unreasonable. And our parents believe every word. Meanwhile, I did everything right. I studied hard, got scholarships, worked while in school, landed a job right after graduation, and have been steadily advancing my career. Yet somehow I am still the one who gets lectures about financial responsibility and the importance of standing on my own 2 feet. The apartment itself is nothing fancy, but it is mine. Or at least it was. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. About 800 square feet in total. The building is older but well-maintained with laundry facilities in the basement and a small balcony that gets morning sun. My parents had it painted before I moved in, but everything else I did myself. I spent weekends fixing it up, hunting for furniture deals, and turning it into my sanctuary. Everything in that apartment, from the comfortable gray sectional sofa to the dining table, I rescued and refinished, from the artwork on the walls to the plants thriving on every windowsill I paid for myself. I created a home that reflected my personality and provided the peaceful retreat I needed after long days at work. By the time Vanessa showed up on my doorstep, I had been living there for just over 2 years. In that time, I had managed to pay off about 60% of my student loans, build a modest emergency fund, and start saving for a down payment on my own place. I was proud of what I had accomplished, and was finally starting to feel like I was getting ahead. My relationship with my parents had improved somewhat since I moved out. The distance helped. We would get together for dinner once or twice a month, and as long as we avoided certain topics like Vanessa's latest crisis or my mother's opinions on my love life, we could usually manage a pleasant evening. I should have known it was too good to last. Looking back, there were warning signs. My mother making comments about how lucky I was to have such an affordable place. My father hinting that I should be more grateful for their generosity. Vanessa's increasingly frequent complaints about her own living situation. But I was busy with work and my own life, and I did not connect the dots until it was too late. That fateful Sunday morning would change everything, though I did not realize just how much at the time. If I had known what was coming, would I have kept that door closed? Would I have pretended not to be home? Probably not. I was raised to face problems head-on, not hide from them. Still, sometimes I wonder how different things might have been if I had just gone back to bed that morning and pulled the covers over my head. When I opened my apartment door that Sunday morning, I was greeted by the sight of my sister surrounded by luggage. Not just an overnight bag, mind you. Vanessa had 3 massive suitcases, the kind you would take for a month-long European vacation, plus several shopping bags, and what looked like a pet carrier, though. Thankfully, there was no pet inside. She was wearing designer sunglasses despite the fact that she was indoors, her hair perfectly styled even at that early hour. Vanessa has always been the pretty one in the family according to our mother, and she works hard to maintain that image even when her bank account is empty. "Surprise!" she said again, pushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. "Love what you have done with the place. It is way nicer than when Mom and Dad showed it to me." "Wait, when did they show it to you?" I asked, still trying to process what was happening, as she dragged one of her suitcases across my freshly cleaned floors. "Last week. I told them I was having some issues with my place, and they mentioned this apartment has 2 bedrooms and you were living here all by yourself." She said this as if I was somehow being selfish for not sharing my home with others. "Vanessa, what is going on? Why are you here with all this luggage at 8 in the morning?" She sighed dramatically and flopped down on my sofa. "Fine, if you must know the whole sob story. I got evicted. My landlord is a complete jerk. I was only late with the rent twice, and suddenly he is all pay or get out. So unfair. And you did not think to call me before showing up at my door. I did not want to bother you until I had to. I stayed with a friend last night, but she has roommates, and they are not cool with me staying longer." She kicked off her shoes and put her feet up on my coffee table. "Besides, this place is practically family property. It is not like you own it." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I may not own it, but I do rent it. I have a lease. I pay for it." "Yeah, at a massive discount," she scoffed. "Must be nice." "I still have to pay rent, Vanessa. And utilities. And buy my own food. And furniture. And everything else." She waved her hand dismissively. "Whatever. The point is, I need a place to stay, and this apartment has an extra bedroom. It is perfect. That second bedroom is my home office. I work from home 2 days a week. So you can work at the kitchen table those days. It is not a big deal. I could feel my blood pressure rising. It is a big deal to me. This is my home. You cannot just show up and announce you are moving in." "Why not? It is not like you own the place. Mom and Dad do. I have a legal lease agreement. For a 1-bedroom apartment, I doubt that. They told me it was listed as a 2-bedroom. This was news to me, and not the good kind. Look, Vanessa, I am sorry about your situation, but you cannot stay here. I need my space and my privacy." Her face darkened. Wow. Just wow. My own sister turning me away when I have literally nowhere else to go. That is cold, Lauren. Really cold. Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone. "Let us see what Mom and Dad have to say about this." My stomach dropped as she put the phone on speaker and dialed. Our mother answered on the second ring. "Vanessa, is everything okay? Did you get to Lauren's?" "I am here, Mom, but Lauren says I cannot stay. She says she does not want me here." Her voice cracked with fake tears that I knew all too well from our childhood. "Lauren is there. Put her on speaker." I heard my mother's stern voice, the one that still made me feel like a disobedient child even in my late 20s. Hi, Mom, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Lauren Elizabeth. What is this I hear about you refusing to help your sister? You know she is going through a difficult time right now. Mom, I had no idea she was planning to move in with me. Nobody discussed this with me at all. We did not think we needed to. It is a family apartment, and your sister needs a place to stay. You have 2 bedrooms and you live alone. It just makes sense. It does not make sense to me. I signed a lease for this apartment. I have turned the 2nd bedroom into my office. I need my privacy. Privacy. You are being selfish. Family helps family in times of need. Your sister lost her job and her apartment. Where is she supposed to go? That is not my responsibility, I said, immediately regretting how harsh it sounded. Not your responsibility, my mother's voice rose in pitch. I cannot believe what I am hearing. After everything we have done for you, giving you that apartment at such a reduced rate. I pay rent, Mom, every month on time. Yes, well below market value, and this is how you repay our generosity, by turning your back on your own sister. I could hear my father in the background asking what was going on. My mother quickly filled him in her version of events, making me sound like the villain. Lauren, my father's voice came through the speaker now. Be reasonable. It will just be for a little while until Vanessa gets back on her feet. And how long will that be, I asked, knowing from experience that Vanessa's definition of a little while could mean months or even years. That is not the point, my mother cut in. The point is that she needs help now, and you are in a position to provide it. What if I say no, I asked, already knowing the answer. There was a pause, and then my mother's voice, cold and clear. Then we might need to reconsider our rental arrangement. If you are going to be difficult about this, perhaps we should be charging you the full market rate for that apartment. After all, we do have expenses to cover. The threat was clear. Either I let Vanessa move in, or my parents would raise my rent to a level I could not afford. It was manipulation, plain and simple. But it was also effective. I looked at my sister, who had dropped the tearful act and was now smirking at me from my sofa. Fine, I said finally. Vanessa can stay, temporarily. Wonderful, my mother's voice was suddenly cheerful again. I knew you would do the right thing, Lauren. You girls have fun now. Help your sister get settled in. The call ended, and Vanessa immediately jumped up from the sofa. Great. Which one is my room? I need to start unpacking. As I watched her wheel her massive suitcases toward my carefully organized home office, I had a sinking feeling that my life was about to become very complicated. Living with Vanessa was every bit as difficult as I had feared, and then some. Within 24 hours, my once peaceful apartment had transformed into what looked like the aftermath of a small tornado. My sister had always been messy, but as adults living together, her habits were unbearable. The living room quickly became her personal closet. Clothes were draped over every surface, makeup scattered across the coffee table, shoes kicked off in random corners. The kitchen was no better. She would make elaborate meals and leave every pot, pan, and utensil unwashed in the sink. When I asked her to clean up after herself, she would promise to do it later, but later never seemed to come. What made it worse was that Vanessa showed absolutely no interest in finding a new job. She would sleep until noon, spend the afternoon watching reality television shows on my couch, and then go out with friends in the evening. When I asked about her job search, she would wave me off with vague comments about exploring her options or waiting for the right opportunity. You cannot just wait for opportunities to come to you, I told her one evening after coming home to find her in the exact same spot on the couch where I had left her 10 hours earlier. You need to be actively applying for jobs. Not everyone wants to be a corporate drone like you, she replied, without looking away from the television. I am taking time to figure out what I really want to do with my life. And how exactly are you planning to pay for food and other expenses while you figure it out? She shrugged. Mom and Dad are helping me out for now. And you already pay for the apartment, so what is the big deal? The big deal became apparent when I received my utility bills at the end of the month. They had nearly doubled. Vanessa took hour-long showers, left lights and the television on all day, and cranked the heat up to tropical levels even when she was not home. When I showed her the bills and asked her to contribute, she claimed she had no money. I told you I am between jobs right now. Once I start working again, I will help out. Promise. But her job search, if you could call it, that consisted of occasionally scrolling through job listings on her phone while complaining that nothing was right for her skill set. What those skills were, I could not tell you. Then there was the issue of her using my things without asking. I would come home to find her wearing my favorite sweater, using my expensive face creams, or eating the lunch I had meal prepped for the week. When confronted, she would act surprised that I was upset. We are sisters. I thought sharing was normal. You always were weirdly possessive about your stuff. I tried to establish some basic ground rules: clean up after yourself, ask before borrowing my things, contribute to groceries, keep noise down during work hours. Vanessa agreed to everything, and then proceeded to ignore every single rule. The worst part was the late-night parties. I would go to bed at a reasonable hour, needing to be up early for work, only to be awakened at midnight by Vanessa and her friends laughing loudly, playing music, and clinking glasses in my living room. When I came out in my pajamas to ask them to keep it down, they would lower the volume for about 10 minutes before gradually turning it back up. After 2 weeks of sleep deprivation, I confronted Vanessa over breakfast, or rather, I confronted her at noon when she finally emerged from her room while I was making lunch. "This is not working," I said firmly. "I need to sleep. I have a job to go to. You cannot keep having friends over until 2 in the morning on weeknights." "God, you sound just like Mom," she said, rolling her eyes. "Except Mom is actually fun now that we are adults. You are like the boring version of her." "This is not about fun, Vanessa. This is about basic respect." "Fine, whatever. I will tell them to be quieter next time." "No, not quieter. No more weeknight gatherings. Period." She looked at me like I had suggested she give up oxygen. "You cannot be serious. What am I supposed to do for fun? Sit alone in my room every night? You could look for a job, update your resume, apply for positions. You know, adult things. You are such a killjoy. No wonder you do not have a boyfriend." It was a low blow, but typical Vanessa, always aiming for the most sensitive spot. I took a deep breath and refused to take the bait. "These are my boundaries. If you cannot respect them, you will need to find somewhere else to live." She smirked. "Really, you are going to kick me out? Good luck with that, when Mom and Dad own this place." And there it was, the trump card she knew she had. As long as our parents were on her side, my hands were tied. The situation reached a breaking point when I came home early from work one day with a migraine, hoping to lie down in a dark, quiet room. Instead, I found Vanessa and 2 of her friends in my home office using my laptop. "What are you doing?" I asked, my head pounding. "Just checking some stuff online," Vanessa said casually. "My phone screen is too small for browsing apartment listings." "That is my work laptop. It has confidential client information on it." "Relax, we are just using the browser. We did not look at any of your files." As I moved closer, I noticed a glass of red wine dangerously close to the keyboard. Before I could say anything, one of her friends gestured excitedly and bumped the glass, sending wine splashing across my laptop. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as the red liquid seeped between the keys. I lunged forward to unplug it and flip it over, but the damage was done. My heart sank as the screen flickered and went black. "Oops," the friend said, barely suppressing a giggle. "My bad." Vanessa handed me a dish towel. "Here, just dry it off. It will probably be fine." I was speechless with fury as I tried to salvage my laptop, which contained not only my work projects but also the presentation I was supposed to deliver to a major client the next day. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" I finally managed to say, my voice shaking. "This has all of my work on it. Projects I have spent months on." "Do not be so dramatic," Vanessa said. "That is why you have those cloud backup things, right? While I did have some files backed up, others were not including recent changes to my presentation. Not to mention the laptop itself was expensive and technically belonged to my company. "You need to replace this," I said firmly. Vanessa laughed. "With what money? You know I am broke right now." "Then you should not be drinking wine and hanging out in the middle of a workday. You should be job hunting." "There she goes again," Vanessa said to her friends, rolling her eyes. Always with the job lecture. I was at my breaking point. I asked her friends to leave, which they did reluctantly, making comments about me being intense as they gathered their things. Once they were gone, I called my parents, hoping against hope that they would see reason. I explained what had happened with the laptop, the late nights, the mess, the disrespect. "Accidents happen, Lauren," my mother said dismissively. "I am sure your company has insurance for these things." "This was not an accident, Mom. This was carelessness. And it is just the latest in a long line of problems since Vanessa moved in. You girls need to learn to get along. You are family. Family respects each other's boundaries. Family does not destroy each other's property and then laugh it off. Vanessa is going through a difficult time right now. She needs support, not criticism." "And what about what I need? Does that matter at all?" There was a pause, and then my mother said, "You have always been the strong one, Lauren. You can handle things. Vanessa needs more help." And there it was, the same message I had heard my entire life. My needs were secondary because I could handle things. I was expected to be the responsible one, the one who sacrificed while Vanessa got endless chances and endless support. As I hung up the phone, I realized nothing was going to change as long as I stayed in this apartment. Something had to give, and it looked like it would have to be me. Exactly 1 week after the laptop incident, I received an email from my father. The subject line read, "Rent Adjustment Notice," and my stomach dropped before I even opened it. Inside was a formal letter informing me that due to increased costs of property maintenance and market adjustments, my rent would be increasing by 100% effective the 1st of next month. I read the email 3 times, convinced I must be misunderstanding. They were doubling my rent. With only 3 weeks' notice, I immediately called my father. "Dad, I just got your email. There must be some mistake." "No mistake, Lauren. Property values in your area have gone up significantly since we set your initial rent. We have been undercharging you for quite some time. But doubling the rent overnight, that is not reasonable, and you know it. We feel it is a fair adjustment given the current market." I took a deep breath. "Dad, be honest with me. Is this because I complained about Vanessa?" There was a pause, and then he sighed. "Your mother and I think you are being unnecessarily difficult about the situation. Vanessa needs support right now. So this is punishment." "Not punishment, Lauren. Reality. If you want to live alone, you should pay what the apartment is actually worth. If you want the discounted family rate, then you need to help the family by giving your sister a place to stay." I did some quick mental calculations. At the new rate, the rent would consume nearly 50% of my monthly income after taxes. Add in utilities, student loan payments, food, and other necessities, and I would be left with almost nothing. I certainly could not continue saving for my own place. "I cannot afford this increase, Dad. You know that." "Then I suggest you learn to get along with your sister." I hung up and immediately opened my budget spreadsheet. The numbers did not lie. There was no way I could make this work long term. Even if I cut out every non-essential expense, even if I never ate out or bought new clothes or went anywhere that cost money, I would barely be scraping by. The next day, I requested a meeting with both of my parents. If I was going to confront this situation, I wanted to do it face to face. We agreed to meet for coffee over the weekend. I arrived at the coffee shop early and secured a table in the corner where we could talk privately. When my parents walked in, I noticed my mother had that tight smile she wore when she was prepared for battle. My father looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting around the room as if seeking an escape route. "Thank you for meeting me," I said as they sat down. "Of course, dear," my mother replied. "Though I do not see what there is to discuss, the rental increase is quite straightforward." "It is not straightforward when it is clearly retaliation," I said. You are doubling my rent because I complained about Vanessa taking advantage of me. That is not true, my mother said, her voice sharp. The increase is purely a business decision. Your father and I have expenses related to that property. Expenses that suddenly doubled in the exact week I called you about Vanessa. Do not take that tone with me, Lauren. We have been more than generous with you. How exactly? By renting me an apartment at below market rate with a formal lease agreement and then changing the terms when it suits you. That is not generosity. That is manipulation. My father cleared his throat. Lauren, try to see it from our perspective. Vanessa is struggling right now. She lost her job. She has nowhere to go. She lost her job because she was consistently late and unprofessional. She has nowhere to go because she got evicted for not paying rent. These are consequences of her own actions. She is your sister, my mother said, as if that explained everything. Yes, she is. And I have offered to help her. I have offered to help her look for jobs, to create a budget, to develop better habits. She has rejected every offer. All she wants is a free place to stay while she continues doing exactly what she has always done. This is how we help her, my mother insisted. By giving her stability so she can get back on her feet. No, this is how you enable her to avoid responsibility. Again. My mother's eyes narrowed. You always were jealous of the attention we gave Vanessa. This is not about jealousy, Mom. This is about fairness, about respect, about treating your adult daughters like adults. If you want to be treated like an adult, then act like one. Adults pay market rate for their apartments. Fine, I said, my decision crystallizing in that moment. I will move out. My parents exchanged glances, and then both of them laughed. Actually laughed. Move out, my mother said. And go where you will not find another 2-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood. For anywhere near what we are charging, even with the increase. I do not need 2 bedrooms. I lived perfectly well in a 1-bedroom before Vanessa showed up. Be realistic, Lauren, my father said. With your student loans and your entry-level salary, where exactly do you think you will go? The condescension in his voice made something harden inside me. They really thought I could not survive without their help. They really believed I would have no choice but to accept their terms. I will figure it out, I said. I always do. This is ridiculous, my mother said. You are going to uproot your entire life, probably end up in some tiny, depressing studio in a dangerous neighborhood, all because you will not share your space with your sister for a few months. No, I am going to move because you have made it clear that as long as I live in your property, you believe you have the right to control my life. We are not controlling you. We are asking you to help family. You are not asking. You are demanding and using financial leverage to force me to comply. My mother threw up her hands. I cannot talk to you when you are being this stubborn. Funny, I feel the same way. My father, ever the peacemaker, jumped in. Let us all take some time to cool down. Lauren, think about this carefully before you make any decisions you might regret. I have thought about it, Dad. I will be out by the end of the month. As I stood to leave, my mother called after me. You will be back, Lauren. When you see what apartments actually cost, you will come running back and beg for our help. I did not turn around. I did not want them to see the tears in my eyes or the uncertainty on my face. Because the truth was, I had no idea how I was going to make this work. But I knew that I had to try. The apartment hunting process was even more challenging than I had anticipated. My parents were right about one thing: finding an affordable place in my current neighborhood was impossible. But I was determined to prove them wrong about everything else. I spent every lunch break and evening scanning rental listings. I set up alerts on multiple websites, contacted real estate agents, and even posted in social media groups dedicated to apartment hunting. My criteria were simple, safe, building, reasonable commute to work and rent that would not completely destroy my budget. After seeing 8 different apartments, each with their own drawbacks, I finally found a possibility. It was smaller than my current place, just a 1-bedroom, and it was a 15-minute longer commute. But the building was well maintained, the neighborhood had good safety ratings, and most importantly, while the rent was higher than what I had been paying, it was still within the realm of what I could afford if I was careful. The application process was nerve-wracking. I worried about my credit score, my debt-to-income ratio, everything. When I received the call that I had been approved, I nearly cried with relief. I signed the lease that same day, committing myself to a place that was truly mine, with no strings attached. The next challenge was figuring out how to afford the security deposit and slightly higher rent. I created a new, stricter budget. No more takeout lunches, no more streaming subscriptions, I barely used no more new clothes unless absolutely necessary. I calculated exactly how much I needed to save from each paycheck to build up enough for the deposit and moving expenses. It would be tight, especially in the beginning, but it was doable. The knowledge that I would be free from my parents' manipulation was worth every sacrifice. With the new apartment secured, I finally told my parents about my decision. I chose to do it over the phone rather than in person, knowing I would be better able to stand my ground without seeing their faces. "I found a new apartment," I said when my mother answered. "I will be moving out at the end of the month as planned." There was a pause. "You cannot be serious, Lauren." "I am completely serious. I signed the lease yesterday." "Where is this apartment? In what kind of neighborhood?" "It is a nice building in Brighton Park. About 15 minutes further from my office." "Brighton Park. That area is not as good as where you are now." "It is a perfectly fine area, Mom. I researched it thoroughly." "And how much are you paying for this downgrade?" I hesitated, but decided honesty was best. "More than I was paying you before the increase, but less than what you were planning to charge me." She scoffed. "So you are paying more for less just to prove a point. That is very mature, Lauren." "No, I am paying for independence, for peace of mind, for the right to live without unexpected roommates or arbitrary rent increases. You will regret this. When your car breaks down or you have a medical expense and you have no savings because you are overpaying for rent, you will come back asking for help. I would rather struggle on my own terms than be comfortable under someone else's control." My mother sighed dramatically. "I am putting your father on. Maybe he can talk some sense into you." My father's voice came on the line softer than my mother's, but no less disapproving. "Lauren, think about what you are doing. This is a rash decision made out of anger." "It is not rash, Dad. I have thought about it carefully. I have done the math. I have researched neighborhoods and buildings. This is a deliberate choice." "And what about your sister? Where is she supposed to go?" "That is not my responsibility. It never was. But if you are so concerned you have a spare bedroom in your house, she could live there." "You know that would not work. Your mother and Vanessa would be at each other's throats within a week." The irony of that statement was not lost on me. They knew Vanessa was difficult to live with, yet they expected me to tolerate what they themselves would not. Then perhaps it is time for Vanessa to truly stand on her own 2 feet, without anyone to bail her out. "You will come back," my father said, echoing my mother's sentiment. "Within a month you will realize what a mistake this is and ask for your old apartment back." "I will not, Dad. I am done being manipulated." After I hung up, I sat on my sofa, my hands shaking slightly. Standing up to my parents had never been easy, but it was becoming necessary for my own well-being. The next challenge was telling Vanessa. I decided to do it directly and without apology. I found her lounging on my sofa, scrolling through her phone as usual. "I am moving out at the end of the month," I said without preamble. She looked up, confusion crossing her face. "What do you mean Mom and Dad are kicking us out?" "No, they are doubling the rent. I found a new place that I can afford." She sat up straighter. "What about me?" "You will need to make your own arrangements." "But I cannot afford this place on my own, you know that." "Yes, I do know that. Just like I know that you have made zero effort to find a job in the weeks you have been here." "That is not fair, I have been looking." "No, you have not. You have been watching television, going out with friends, and using my things without permission." Her expression darkened. So you are just going to abandon me? Leave me homeless? You are not homeless, Vanessa. You have options. You could get a job and find roommates. You could move back in with mom and dad. You could ask one of your many friends for help. I cannot believe you are doing this to me. Her voice took on the wounded tone she used so effectively with our parents. My own sister throwing me out on the street. I am not throwing you out. I am moving out of an apartment that has become unaffordable because our parents decided to use it as leverage to control me. This is about control, really, or is it just that you cannot stand the thought of helping me for once in your life? You have always been jealous of me, of the attention I get from mom and dad. I laughed. I could not help it. Jealous. Of what exactly? Of never being held accountable for anything. Of having no direction in life. Of being so dependent on others that you panic at the thought of standing on your own. Her face flushed with anger. You think you are so perfect, do not you, with your boring job and your boring life. At least I know how to have fun. At least people actually like being around me. If that were true, you would have somewhere else to go right now. It was a harsh thing to say, but years of resentment had built up and I was tired of tiptoeing around the truth. Vanessa grabbed her phone. I am calling mom and dad. They will not let you do this. Go ahead, they already know. She stormed into her room, formerly my office, and slammed the door. I could hear her raised voice as she complained to our parents about my betrayal. Less than 5 minutes later, my own phone rang. It was my mother. How dare you spring this on your sister with no warning, she demanded. The same way you sprung the rent increase on me, or the way you all decided Vanessa would move in without asking me. That is different. We are trying to help her. And I am trying to help myself. By abandoning your family. By refusing to be manipulated anymore. If you do this, Lauren, do not expect any help from us in the future. When you struggle to pay your bills or need a loan, do not come crying to us. It was the ultimate threat, the one they had always held over my head, but for the first time it did not scare me. I would rather struggle on my own than live under your conditions. You are making a huge mistake, one you will regret very soon. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. I hung up, my heart pounding, but my resolve stronger than ever. For the first time in my adult life, I was truly standing up for myself, not just in words but in actions. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Over the next few days, the tension in the apartment was unbearable. Vanessa alternated between giving me the silent treatment and making passive-aggressive comments. My parents called daily with new warnings about how difficult life would be without their support. But with each passing day, my determination only grew stronger. I began packing my belongings in the evenings after work, carefully wrapping the items I had purchased with my own money over the years. As I boxed up my life, a plan began to form in my mind. A plan that would make a statement they could not ignore. As I packed my personal belongings, I started to really look around the apartment and take inventory. The comfortable gray sectional sofa where Vanessa had been lounging for weeks. I bought that during a holiday sale, paying it off over 6 months. The dining table and chairs where we had shared awkward meals, I found them at a thrift store and refinished them myself over several weekends. The coffee table, the bookshelves, the television, the kitchen appliances, even the curtains and rugs. Every single piece of furniture and decor in that apartment had been purchased by me. When I signed the lease with my parents, the apartment had been completely empty. They had painted the walls and cleaned the carpets, but that was it. Everything else I had provided. And according to the lease I had carefully reviewed, nothing in it stated that items I brought into the apartment would become property of the landlord. I decided to do some research. I spent an evening reading tenant rights websites and even consulted with a friend who had studied law. The verdict was clear: furniture and appliances purchased by a tenant remain the property of the tenant unless specifically stated otherwise in the lease. My parents had no legal claim to any of it. This realization sparked an idea. If I was going to make a fresh start truly free from my parents' manipulation, why should I leave behind thousands of dollars worth of furniture that I had paid for? Why should Vanessa get to enjoy the comforts I had worked so hard to provide? I made a detailed inventory of everything I owned, from the major furniture pieces down to the kitchen utensils and shower curtain. Then I started planning the logistics. Moving an entire apartment's worth of furniture would require more than just a few friends with cars. I would need a truck people to help carry heavy items and somewhere to put everything if it would not all fit in my new place. First, I reserved a moving truck for the last Saturday of the month. Then I reached out to friends from work and my kickboxing class, explaining the situation and asking for help. To my surprise and gratitude, several people volunteered immediately, some even offering storage space in their garages if needed. Next, I needed to figure out the timing. I knew that Vanessa typically spent Saturdays with her friends, often not returning until late at night. My parents lived an hour away and rarely came to the city on weekends. If I timed it right, I could be completely moved out before any of them realized what was happening. The week before the move, I began subtly removing smaller items from the apartment when Vanessa was not around. I took books, decorative items, and kitchen gadgets to my new place in batches, preparing it slowly for the big move. I was careful not to take anything we were actively using to avoid raising suspicion. When moving day arrived, I waited until I heard Vanessa leave the apartment around 11 in the morning. As soon as the door closed behind her, I texted my friends, "Operation Independence is a go." Within 30 minutes, 6 friends arrived at my apartment, followed shortly by the moving truck. We worked with military precision, wrapping furniture in blankets, disassembling larger pieces, and carefully carrying everything down to the truck. The sofa, the dining set, my bed and dresser, the television and stand, the bookshelves, the microwave and coffee maker, even the shower curtain and bath mat. If I had bought it, it came with me. We left behind only the most basic items that had been in the apartment when I moved in: the refrigerator, which belonged to my parents, the stove, and the window blinds. Everything else, from the throw pillows on the sofa to the pots and pans in the kitchen, was mine, and now it was coming with me. As we loaded the last items into the truck, I took one final walk through the now empty apartment. It looked almost exactly as it had when I first moved in 2 years ago, before I had turned it into a home. The bare walls and vacant spaces held the echoes of my life there, but I felt no regret, only a sense of righteous satisfaction. Before leaving, I wrote a brief note and left it on the kitchen counter. All items removed were purchased by me with my own money. Rent has been paid through the end of the month as per our agreement. Keys are on the counter. Lauren. Short, factual, and to the point. No apologies, no explanations. Just the truth. We completed the move to my new apartment in record time, with everyone pitching in to help arrange furniture and unpack boxes. By evening, my new place was starting to look like home, filled with the familiar items that represented my hard work and independence. It was around 8 p.m. when my phone exploded with notifications. First, a text from Vanessa, "Where is all the furniture? What did you do?" Then a call from my mother, which I let go to voicemail. Her message was a mixture of shock and fury. "Lauren Elizabeth, you call me back this instant. Vanessa says the apartment is empty. What have you done with all the furniture? You cannot just take everything. That is completely unacceptable." My father texted, "We need to talk about this immediately. What you have done is potentially illegal. Call us back now." I waited until I was alone, sitting comfortably on my sofa in my new apartment, before I returned their call. My mother answered on the first ring. "How dare you," she began without preamble. "How dare you strip that apartment bare and leave your sister with nothing? What is she supposed to sleep on? Where is she supposed to sit?" "Everything I took belongs to me," I said calmly. "I paid for every piece of furniture, every appliance, every item of decor with my own money. None of it belonged to you or to Vanessa." "That is not the point. You knew she was living there. You did this deliberately to punish her." "No, I did this because those items are mine and I need them in my new home. What Vanessa does now is not my concern." "We will take legal action," my father cut in, apparently on speakerphone. "You cannot just take everything from a rental property like that." "Actually, I can. I have reviewed the lease and consulted with someone who knows tenant law. Nothing in our agreement states that items I brought into the apartment would become property of the landlord. Everything I took, I can prove I purchased." There was a moment of stunned silence. "We are your parents," my mother finally said, her voice trembling with anger. "How could you do this to us? To your sister? The same way you could double my rent overnight. The same way you could force Vanessa into my home without asking. The same way you have always prioritized her needs over mine. This is simply me prioritizing myself for once." "You will regret this," my father said, "when you need our help in the future." "I will not need your help," I interrupted. "That is the whole point of what I am doing. I am breaking the cycle of dependency you have created. I am showing you that I can stand on my own without your conditional support." "This is not over," my mother said. "Not by a long shot. Actually, it is. My rent is paid through the end of the month. The keys are on the counter. Our business relationship is concluded." I ended the call before they could respond, then turned off my phone. I knew there would be more angry calls and texts, more threats and guilt trips. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free. I had taken control of my own story, and no one could take that away from me. 3 months have passed since that dramatic moving day, and life has settled into a new rhythm. My new apartment, while smaller than the previous one, feels infinitely more spacious without the weight of family manipulation filling every corner. I have rearranged my furniture to fit the new space, hung my artwork on the walls, and even added a few new plants. It feels like home in a way my parents' apartment never truly did, because this place is entirely mine, earned through my own efforts and protected by boundaries I have finally learned to enforce. The transition was not without its challenges. The increased rent meant tightening my budget significantly. I started meal prepping more seriously, found free activities to replace costly outings, and picked up a few freelance projects to supplement my income. Some days were harder than others, especially at the beginning when unexpected expenses would arise, and the temptation to call my parents for help was strong. But each time I weathered a financial storm on my own, my confidence grew. Professionally, I have thrived in ways I never expected. Without the constant drama and sleep deprivation that came with living with Vanessa, I have been able to focus more deeply on my work. 3 weeks ago, I received a promotion and a modest raise, recognition for the quality of my contributions that would not have been possible in my previous state of perpetual stress. As for my relationship with my family, it remains complicated. For the first month after I moved, my parents called almost daily, alternating between anger, guilt trips, and occasional attempts at reconciliation on their terms. I maintained firm boundaries, making it clear that while I was open to rebuilding our relationship, it would have to be one based on mutual respect. Eventually, the calls became less frequent. About 6 weeks after the move, I received a text from my father asking if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. Cautiously, I agreed. When we met, he seemed older, somehow more tired. He told me that Vanessa was still living in the apartment, now furnished with the bare minimum my parents had purchased for her. "Your mother does not know I am here," he admitted. "She is still pretty angry." "And you are not?" I asked. "I was," he said. "But then I started thinking about things from your perspective. We did put you in an impossible position." It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from either of my parents. We talked for nearly 2 hours that day about boundaries and expectations, about the different ways we had treated Vanessa and me over the years. He did not promise any dramatic changes, and I did not expect any. But it was a start, a small crack in the wall of dysfunction that had defined our family dynamics for so long. Vanessa and I have not spoken directly since the move. According to my father, she found a part-time job at a boutique after my parents finally stopped covering all her expenses. She is still living in the apartment, still struggling financially, but at least taking some steps toward independence. I wish her well, but I also know that maintaining distance is necessary for my own well-being. The most valuable outcome of this whole experience has been the lessons I have learned about myself and about life. I discovered that sometimes you have to sacrifice comfort for freedom, The security of that below-market rent came at the cost of my autonomy, a price that was ultimately too high to pay. Now, I may have less money in my bank account at the end of each month, but I own every decision I make. There is power in that ownership, a confidence that comes from knowing you can stand on your own. I also learned the importance of boundaries in relationships, especially family ones. For years, I had allowed my parents and sister to cross my boundaries, believing that family loyalty required me to accept whatever they demanded. Now I understand that healthy relationships, even within families, require mutual respect. Love does not mean allowing yourself to be used or manipulated. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for others, is to say no. Perhaps most importantly, I discovered my own worth. Growing up as the responsible one, the child who did not need as much attention or support, I had internalized the belief that my needs were somehow less important, that I should be satisfied with less, grateful for whatever scraps of recognition or consideration came my way. Moving out, taking my furniture, and building a life on my own terms was my way of declaring that I matter too. That my time, my space, my belongings, and my boundaries deserve respect. There are still days when I question my decision, especially when unexpected expenses arise, or when I miss the easier camaraderie of family gatherings. But then I look around at this space I have created, this life I am building on my own terms, and I know I made the right choice. Sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. If there is one thing I would want you to take from my story, it is this: you are worthy of respect, especially from those who claim to love you. Do not let anyone, family included, convince you to accept less than you deserve. Sometimes walking away is the strongest, bravest thing you can do. And sometimes taking your furniture with you is not just a practical decision, but a powerful statement about valuing yourself and what you have worked for. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to prioritize their own well-being even when family pressures them to do otherwise. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, standing up for yourself is not selfish. It is essential for your personal growth and happiness.